Your daily fix of women's mixed martial arts from the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and one championship. Be in the loop, because Golden State Media Concepts got you covered. Get your fix in women's MMA. We've got you covered on Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Arnel De Leon, wishing that your day is going well. It is 2021, and every time I look on Twitter, a new person happens to pass away who is famous or incredibly successful. So you know what? Let's persevere, let's fight through, and although we are looking forward though, let's go look back in the year of 2020. Of course, a lot of things didn't go well, and there are 10 fighters specifically who stood out for me in terms of intrigue. I don't know how to really explain it. I put down here the top 10 women's mixed martial arts fighters that stood out in the year 2020. And as I go through this list, I'll go through as to why they stood out for me. You don't exactly have to be a great fighter. Now, the first fighters I'm going to name off here, they're obviously great here, but in the year of 2020, one of the reasons why I love mixed martial arts is for the competition, the actual, performing nature of, karate, of wrestling, of boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai. You want to see this. There are a lot of narratives and storylines that pertains to mixed martial arts. And when I made this top 10 list here, this top 10 list, the actual order of it really doesn't really matter that much. These are just 10 fighters who I thought of, as in, these are the 10 women I think about more than any other, female fighters out there in the year of 2020. And so, here's my list. Starting off the list, though, first off, I have number 1, Joanna Jędrzejczyk. And so, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, obviously she had that stellar fight against Zhang Weili. And as I am talking right now, it was reported out there, this is coming from MMA Junkie, MMA Wrestling, and some other MMA sites and sports sites, that all said that Weili Zhang versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk was the best fight of the year. It was the fight of the year. And how I viewed it, it was the fight of the year. Of course, Rose Namajunas, she herself doesn't believe it's fight of the year. But without a doubt, it's one of the most exciting fights of the year of 2020. And after this fight, whenever there was a presser that happened, Dana would come up, and he would try to hype up every other fight to be as good, if not better, than the Weili Zhang and the Joanna fight. Like Israel Adesanya versus Paulo Costa. He was hyping it up. Oh man, expect this fight to be just as good, if not better, than the Zhang Weili fight. Now, that fight was awesome. Paulo Costa versus Israel Adesanya. There are people out there who make YouTube videos that expand upon the fight, and they break it down second by second as to what happened in the fight. It was a stellar, great fight, but we can all agree here in terms of overall excitement, it was the most fun fights to go watch this year. You could argue that Zhang Weili versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk was number 1. It was. You could put up all of Vicente Luque's fights. Every single one of his fights was stellar and amazing. Even the upcoming Dustin Poirier versus Conor McGregor fight, that fight is expected from Dana himself, saying, expect that fight to be just as good, possibly better, than the Joanna Weili fights. Now, as time went on, as we went on to, in the final presser of the year 2020, Dana White's pick for what was the best fight of the year was Weili Zhang, and he would constantly bring it up. He would constantly bring up in every single presser, oh man, that fight was the best fight. That fight was amazing. That fight was stellar. And as I am saying that, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, her name is being thrown out there. The situation right now currently for the strawweight division, because Weili Zhang, she's the current women's strawweight champion. We got Rose Namajunas, got Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and now we got Carla Esparza. Their names being thrown in there, and we're still unsure on what exactly is the future for the strawweight division. And I think this fight here with Joanna Jędrzejczyk in the past 2.5 years have really grown on me. I think not to grow on me, but grown on many people, because I firmly believe what was the biggest fights in Joanna Jędrzejczyk's career? It was her loss against Rose Namajunas. It was, because in the early days of women's mixed martial arts in the UFC, it was Ronda Rousey, who was that was the one that everyone paid attention to. And then Joanna Jędrzejczyk, who was that women's champion, who was an afterthought to Ronda Rousey. You ready to tell me who was the most dominant women's champion before Amanda Nunes? It was Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Joanna Jędrzejczyk had just as many title defenses as Ronda Rousey, except she actually continued on, and now she's going through this weird second life in her career now as an MMA fighter, because she started off as she's an unknown fighter who's really darn good, and then she became this champion that people really weren't focusing in on. I still remember reading up on 2018 Reddits, where people were saying, all right then, what's the worst part about mixed martial arts? And a lot of people brought up women's mixed martial arts, because you have Joanna Jędrzejczyk, who is heralded as kind of like Demetrius Johnson, where she's amazing, stellar, great fighter, great champion, but because she's so dominant, it's kind of like where Valentina Shevchenko is currently is right now, which is why how I view it. Valentina among the current 3 women's champions, which is Amanda Nunes, Valentina Shevchenko, and Zhang Weili. Those 2 other women are ahead of her in terms of pedigree, in terms of respect, in terms of appealing to a large audience. Because Amanda Nunes, she's a big superstar, alright then. Weili Zhang, she was a star coming up, and then upon her amazing fight against Joanna Jędrzejczyk, this fighter who was a prospect that time last year, becoming now the strawweight champion, people know about her. She is a big money draw. The second you see Weili Zhang's name out there, you're like, oh my goodness, this fight is going to be amazing. And the interesting thing about Weili Zhang, I'm right now trying to get into One Championships, and they're now, and also Yan Chunan, who currently is a top 5 ranked fighter upon defeating Claudia Gadelha in the women's strawweight division, and there seems to be a lot more female Asian fighters coming in who are trying to make a staked claim in the flyweight division and the strawweight division. So right now there is an influx of Asian fighters coming into the UFC, female Asian fighters coming in, and so it's really huge to see Weili Zhang. She's a big star. She truly is in a global scale and the States. So among the 3 current champions, Valentina Shevchenko, she's kind of there. You know her, you respect her, you expect her to win all her bouts, but she has this aura of invincibility with her, and that aura of invincibility sometimes is a turnoff. It really is. If you see, it's one that Anderson Silva's dominant reign as champion was one of the reasons why one of my friends just couldn't watch MMA, because, and also same thing with Ronda Rousey, where it was a turnoff for them to go watch these 2 dominant champions dominate, because in their perspective, I'm talking about their perspective, that also is prevalent among some people, is that they don't feel or inclined to go follow somebody or watch something if they know what the end result is. And when you have Valentina Shevchenko, who you expect to go knock out all their opponents, when you have Anderson Silva, when you have the Ronda Rouseys, they go in, defeat their opponent within the span of a minute or 2, then it kind of is a turn off for some people. Some people want back and forth action, and for Joanna Jędrzejczyk, she was the worst case scenario in the sense that she is a dominant champion, beats all her opponents decisively, and also she's a point system fighter. So in the grand scheme of things, she just struggled appealing to anyone in the audience, the general audience, the mainstream audience, even the hardcore audience. I knew who Joanna Jędrzejczyk was during her time as champion upon defeating Carla Esparza. I thought, okay, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, she's the best in her division. Okay, whatever. And because they were so focused in on trying to promote Joanna Jędrzejczyk for being the best ever in the strawweight division, it led to people just being kind of jaded with the rest of the division. It kind of is right now how it is with Amanda Nunes with the featherweight division. No one cares about the featherweight division. You know why? Because their current champion, Amanda Nunes, has pretty much cleaned out the division. So who's out there for you to support or for to cheer for, or what narratives is there happening currently for the featherweight division, other than Megan Anderson, who many people, including myself, really doubts that she can even beat Nunes in the first place. Alright then, that's not me disrespecting Megan Anderson. I'm just saying she is the last hope for that featherweight division. And so for number 1, I have Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Number 2, I got Weili Zhang. Joanna Jędrzejczyk, after her loss to Rose Namajunas, really elevated her stock. Like, she's a fighter who definitely elevated her stock, along with like Jessica Andrade, who I'm going to bring up later today, in that sense that they're two fighters who, upon losing, actually made themselves come across as a fighter you kind of want to... People have underdog stories. People want the bounce back stories. People don't like stories where, you know, the champion or one fighter is just dominating. Like Conor McGregor, even though the guy was never a good champion, the fact that he is, by certain means, kind of an underdog in the realm of mixed martial arts, especially when you go look into the backstory and to the history of Conor McGregor, and like listening through interviews and like how he grew up and stuff. Yeah, like there is a reason why fighters like Conor McGregor, who although don't have dominant title reigns, appeal to a large audience. And Joanna Jędrzejczyk, I believe her stock has risen upon losing to Rose, and it's risen even higher upon losing to Weili Zhang. And Zhang Weili, she's early in her title reign, but she had, without a doubt, how I viewed it, the best strawweight women's bout in the history of the UFC. And so we go from those two. At number 3, I have Carla Esparza. Carla Esparza is one of those fighters who so Carla Esparza is I'll be bluntly honest with you. Okay, so Carla Esparza does not appeal to a large audience. She doesn't do it. She's a great fighter, a stellar fighter, but her style doesn't appeal to a large audience, and in many occasions, you can even hear through the commentary team, they're kind of indifferent towards Carla Esparza. And if you look at the career of Carla Esparza, even the UFC brass are pretty indifferent towards Carla Esparza. I put down here that she's been pretty much stuck in the journeyman role for the past 3 years. In the year of 2020, she did win 2 split decisions over Michelle Waterson and Marina Rodriguez. And those 2 fights, which I'm going to bring up later after the commercial break in the next couple minutes here, those 2 fights really are head scratchers in the sense that although she won those fights, can you, as either a booker or a fight fan, be like, yeah, man, Carla Esparza, next champion? The honest truth is no. I really can't. And Carla Esparza, former strawweight champion, I would say she is, without a doubt, the best grappler in all of UFC's strawweight division. And right now, it is expected that Carla Esparza might fight against Zhang Weili at some point in 2021. Now, do you agree with that assessment? I don't know. I honestly don't know if I agree with Carla Esparza fighting for the title here. And the reason for that is because of this. So, she was expected to fight 3 times in the year 2020. Fought Waterson, fought Marina Rodriguez, and then on December 12th, she was going to be fighting against prospect Amanda Ribas in December. But she pulled out for undisclosed reasons. We still don't know what those reasons are for Carla Esparza pulling out. But now we're hearing reports from Dana White himself saying that she is next in line against Zhang Weili. There's no contract signed yet. Zhang Weili herself doesn't know what's happening. Rose doesn't know what's happening. Carla Esparza doesn't know what's happening. It feels like nobody knows what exactly is the direction for the UFC strawweight division in the year of 2021. Like, even Joanna Jędrzejczyk, her name is being thrown out there, and Joanna herself is like, I'm going to fight the winner of the next title fight, but she doesn't know what the next title fight is going to be. And so she's like, you know what? I'm going to fight whoever wins, whoever defeats Zhang Weili, or whoever loses to her, whatever happens, I'm going to be next in line after the next fight. But nobody knows what exactly is the next fight. And then you have Yan Xiaonan, who I believe the perfect matchup for her would be Carla Esparza. And there were already signs pointing in the direction for Yan Xiaonan versus Carla Esparza, especially after the Esparza-Claudia Cadell fight. After that fight didn't turn out happening. So right now, just big question marks. Really big question marks. Do I think Carla Esparza deserves to fight against Zhang Weili? Honestly, no. I really don't think so. And here's the thing. I don't understand the idea behind why Zhang Weili, she was initially offered a fight against Amanda Ribas, a fighter who was outside the top 10. She defeated Marina Rodriguez and Michelle Waterson, fighters who were ranked 7 through 12. So she's fighting these fighters who are ranked 7 to 12. It's like 7 to 12 in terms of their placement and where they should be fighting at. She's fighting against these other fighters here who are not part of the top 5. And it's not like Esparza is dominating her opponents to go and be like, oh yeah, man, she's dominating her opponents so much, she deserves to go fight amongst the top 5. Not really. That's not honestly the case here for Esparza. And I'll go deeper into that after a short commercial break here. You're listening to the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast. Come back after the short break. See you soon.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info. Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And we are back. And so I am discussing the top 10 female fighters who stood out in the year of 2020. I mentioned Joanna Jędrzejczyk, Zhang Weili, great fight they had, Fight of the Year candidates. And so for Carla Esparza, she ended up winning 2 split decision victories over Michelle Waterson and Marina Rodriguez. And in the Michelle Waterson fight, many people, I say the majority of people, would say that Michelle Waterson defeated Esparza. Because other than like short, brief instances, and in that final 25 seconds of the third round, there's no way you could say Carla Esparza had complete control of that fight. Now, Michelle Waterson, she didn't do much also. She really didn't. Michelle Waterson won the fight based off like fight stats. That's how it should be. Like, she was a better fighter over Esparza if you just go purely on the stats. And then I always say, you have to judge a fight based on both the stats and the eye test. And when the stats say Waterson won, then you look at the eye test, and in the eye test, nothing really much is happening. You kind of have to give it to Waterson. Like, Esparza was a very safe fighter. She didn't really do much in that fight then. I argue that her fight against Michelle Waterson was pretty darn boring. And then she fought against Marina Rodriguez. And in her fight against Marina Rodriguez, it was a fun showcase of Marina. So we have Esparza wrestling somebody who isn't all that adept in wrestling in Marina Rodriguez. And then Carla Esparza, I believe she was pressured into trying to finish the fight. And it was a very sloppy showing by Esparza, in the sense that she gets a takedown on Rodriguez, and then she's like overwhelmingly like throwing out like hammer fists and ground and pound. And there are moments in this fight here where Carla Esparza, I describe Carla Esparza as a point system wrestler, in the sense that we have some wrestlers who they shoot them for the takedown and they ground and pound you, and then they just dominate you. We got some fighters who shoot in for grappling, get the submission hold in as quick as they can. And then we have point system grapplers, like Carla Esparza. Like, she goes in, double leg takedown, and then you are down the ground for the rest of the fight. She will keep you down the ground. She's going to go pummel you, and she's going to tire you out. She's not going to knock you out. She's not going to go submit you, but she's going to go and grind you out through all rounds of the action, and she's going to win by points. She's going to win by decision. That's how typically a Carla Esparza fight goes, up until very recently. But even then, she kind of is aiming as, she's at her best when she's a point system fighter. And in her fight against Rodriguez, she gets a takedown in, and in multiple scenarios in the fight against Rodriguez, she would then attempt like a single key lock or an armbar or go to backpack position and attempt a rear naked choke when she really shouldn't have. She's purposely placing herself away from a strong, reliable, dominant position in order to go and take the risk of her trying to get the early victory, which I respect at times. But I respect fighters who do that, but I just find it strange when Esparza, who has a history of like grappling you, keeping you there, and fighting very safe, is all of a sudden fighting very recklessly. And it is through her fighting recklessly that it leads to Marina Rodriguez, in many moments of this fight, picking apart Carla Esparza, reversing her out, or them going back to stand up, and Marina Rodriguez just boxing her out. Like, the way how I looked at the fight here, Marina Rodriguez, she barely lost that fight. She barely did. If Marina Rodriguez worked on her cardio just a little bit, and she just did a better third round, there's a real chance that Rodriguez could have defeated Carla Esparza. If these two were to fight yet again, and Marina Rodriguez is a lot more prepped up for it, I think that Marina Rodriguez could defeat Carla Esparza. That's not me being a hater for Carla Esparza. That's just me really questioning on what got Esparza being in the discussion of being a potential number contender. Dano himself saying that it's Esparza next. And we're not really sure on what's going on with Rose Namajunas. I'm not sure what the future is for Rose. I'm not really sure if Rose will even fight in the year 2021. Because according to Dana White, he's saying oh man, the Rose Namajunas camp, they're not responding, they're not reacting, we offered her, nothing's happening, move on to Esparza. I'm still questioning what's going on, and we just have to wait and see. And then we have Mckenzie Dern coming in at number 4. So Mckenzie Dern, who is one of my favorites of the year 2020, she went 3-0. 3-0, defeating Hannah Cifers, Randa Marcos, and a stellar fight against Verna Jandaroba in the year 2020. Now, her striking has improved, but she is still pretty green in her striking. In the sense that if you look at her fight against Randa Marcos, her fight against Ciphers, even all her fights, there's always something in those fights in Mckenzie Dern's striking that if you were to have her fight against Valentina or Zhang Weili or or Rose or a Jermaine Duranway, Mckenzie Dern, there are so many openings for her to potentially get knocked out. There really are. When she fought against Hannah Cifers, the reason why Dern won that fight was because she just took whatever Ciphers gave to her, and Ciphers, who herself really isn't that great of a striker in the first place, she just endured these shots to the jaw by Hannah Cifers, and then she just no-sold it. And what's so funny about this was that when she defeated Hannah Cifers with an armbar, afterwards they give up medical suspensions. And despite the fact that Mckenzie Dern got pummeled in the face 6 consecutive times in the jaw, straight, clear, clean-cut shots by Ciphers, Dern did not get a medical suspension. That's how much she no-sold on Hannah Cifers. But if she got pummeled by somebody someone a lot more bigger, somebody even Maria Agapova, then yeah, that would have turned out really, really bad. Dern was shocked, was stunned, she was shocked. She really didn't know how to handle herself when she was being overwhelmed by Ciphers. And she kind of got lucked out there in the sense that, Ciphers wasn't that strong of a striker, so she could just endure it, and then she can get into her position and go for a submission victory. And in her fight against Randa Marcos, there was one instance where Mckenzie Dern, she went for the spinning roundhouse kick, where she whipped the air, and she didn't need to even attempt it because she was very far away from her opponent. And then she slipped, she's fell down. She just fell down, and she does it again. She falls down. Marcos goes in there, tries to grapple with Dern. Dern, who was an amazing jiu-jitsu grappler, takes advantage of Randa Marcos trying to go and wrestle Dern. Dern ends up winning the fight. And you can say the best case of Mckenzie Dern really improving on her striking was against Verna Jandaroba. Now, looking at the fight, I thought Jandaroba won. That's how I viewed it. But if you look at the fight stats, Mckenzie Dern ended up winning that fight. And it was a very close bout. It really was. It was just that Dern just had a more higher volume of strikes, and she utilized and maximized her reach advantage more so than Jandiroba. So it's an instance where Jandiroba was hitting harder, had more better clean looking shots, while Mckenzie Dern was unloading in terms of like long strikes and long jabs and leg kicks. So she won based on the totality of like accumulated strikes, and that's how judges scored it for her. But Mckenzie Dern, she'll be fighting against Nina Ansaroff, who is making a return back to the UFC after I think a year and a half. It's been a year and a half since Nina Ansaroff has fought in the UFC, and she's like maintained her position of being a top 6 ranked fighter in the start division. So we're going to see Dern versus Nina Ansaroff, and if Dern defeats Nina Ansaroff, then Mckenzie Dern could be a top 6 ranked fighter in the UFC. Their fight will be happening on April, so if Dern were to defeat Nina Ansaroff, then go fight one more time by early 2022, there's a real possibility Mckenzie Dern can be the next number 1 contender. And so for number 5, I got Kayla Harrison. Kayla Harrison, currently the lightweight PFL champion. Her stock has jumped up tremendously in the past 2 years. Kayla Harrison, despite not competing for the UFC, she's done well for herself in terms of her self-promotion. She's a 2-time Olympian, 2-time gold medalist, and she's one of those fighters who has that strange sound charisma about her, which is weird because like if you ever hear Kayla Harrison talk, or whenever she's in a group of people talking, she never shuts up. And so for Kayla Harrison, when she's in the ring, when she's in the cage ring, there's this like silent charisma and star power of Kayla Harrison. It's like I put out Kayla Harrison is one of those fighters that look like somebody you don't want to mess with at a bar. And I guess one of the reasons that I'm really appealed to Kayla Harrison as a fighter is because she fights at 155. She's a 155 pounder. She's a woman's fighter, and every fighter she fights. Here's the thing with PFL's lightweight division. Other than Kayla Harrison, every other fighter in that like PFL lightweight division looks like they are natural featherweight or bantamweights, but they just have to fight against Kayla Harrison because like she's just a big star and you can make money off fighting her. All right, but Harrison, she's huge. Like go Google image Kayla Harrison. She's ripped. She's buff. She's jacked. She's got like that China vibes. Like she's one of the only fighters currently in the world out there. I say like if you like, discuss like one championships, Bellator, UFC, she looks like she's that one girl who can outmuscle and outpower every single fighter among all. Like she's like I say pound for pound the strongest women's fighter in the entire world right now in MMA. That's how I believe it. Because when you look at the rest of the champions here, you got Zhang Weili, who is seen as like it's like oh man, and like an honorable fighter coming in from China. She knows like wushu stuff. That's really cool. You look at somebody like Valentina Shevchenko, who's kind of an afterthought right now. You're kind of indifferent towards her. Then you go to like one championship where you have Angela Lee and Zhang, who are both great fighters here. But no, even Chris Cyborg. You say like, how do you describe Chris Cyborg? Oh man, she's a great female fighter. But as you're describing all these other champions, when you have to describe Kayla Harrison, you don't say, oh man, she's a great fighter. You say, oh man, Kayla Harrison, she's a scary fighter. Like she can go there and mess up a lot of the guys here. And I'd argue that she's got a greater presence than Amanda Nunes. I'm saying it there. I believe she's one of the women out there who can potentially ragdoll Nunes. And you know what? If you type up Kayla Harrison, she's already like in GOAT talks. Like she's discussing who's the GOAT of women's mixed martial arts. Obviously, she's not there yet. Amanda Nunes is higher than her in terms of the totem pole of like who are the greatest women's fighters of all time. But, you know what? Kayla Harrison, in her last fight, to which she just destroyed Courtney King, she moved down to featherweight. And Kayla Harrison, she's discussing that with her move to featherweight, technically, she would be viable to fight against Nunes. Now, I'm not sure what the contract situation is for Kayla Harrison right now. She says she's aiming to be a double champion right now for PFL. She'll try to be simultaneously the lightweight and a featherweight champion. And then when it comes to like, contract negotiations, she can use that to bump her salary up. So like, good on for Kayla Harrison for that. I'd love to see Kayla Harrison compete in the UFC. Like, it's a personal dream fight for me to see Kayla Harrison versus Jermaine Radmay. Or Kayla Harrison compete in Bellator and fight against Chris Sauberg. You want to see how well Kayla Harrison can do. Because right now it feels like Kayla Harrison is a big fish in a small pond right now in PFL. And when you mention Kayla Harrison, it's impossible not to mention her and not discuss also Nunes or the Chris Cyborgs or the Weili Zhangs out there or the Valentin Shevchenkos. Also, Kayla Harrison, she's very endearing to the MMA community because there's one video that popped up out there where there was like a fighter summit that happened where they got all these champions and great fighters. They got Justin Gaethje, Henry Cejudo, Kamaru Usman, Khabib Nurmagomedov. They're all like hanging out. They do like a press conference and then they got for dinner. And then in this table here, you got all these great fighters. Like Henry Cejudo is talking with Khabib. They're joking around. But in the background, it's true. So the camera is on this one table with like 8 people. And around those like 8 people, there was even like other people around them. And then in the background, you see Kayla Harrison, who is like several feet away from them in her own table. And she's the only person in her own table smack talking the people in like in the big table. It's pretty much like, here's the cool kids table, and then here's like the weirdo table. Like Kayla Harrison has her own table to herself, and she's like yelling across her table to the other people's table, being like, hey, I'm one of the best ever, gold medals, yeah, and everyone's ignoring her. And there's something really endearing about that, where she's like, oh man, she's like one of the toughest people in the entire world, but she's not accepted to the cool kids table. It's kind of like a weird side of her, and I don't know, something about that is like very endearing, very relatable, and just very humorous about it. And so you're listening to the GSMC Women's MMA podcast, coming back after the short break here. See you soon.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play. This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
And we are back. I am Ronaldo Leon discussing the top 10 women's fighters who really stood out to me in the year of 2020. I already mentioned Joanna Jacek, Zhang Weili, Carla Esparza, Mckenzie Dern, Kayla Harrison, and we're halfway there. And I want to talk about one of my favorite fighters, and a fighter that really stood out to me in 2020, being someone who, although they do not win, they're certainly a fighter that you always want to watch. And even though they're not a top-ranked fighter, or you expect them to be anywhere near the title scene anytime soon, like, I don't expect this woman at all to become world champion. And that's not me being mean. I just don't think she's got that all-around skill set, or is that good in her striking, which is her bread and butter, but she's not good enough of a striker to be at an elite level. But even then, I love this girl. Coming up at number 6, I got Angela Hill. So Angela Hill is sort of in that fun gatekeeper position, kind of like where Platinum Mike Perry is right now. And in the last podcast, I discussed that Mike Perry is currently in that position that Thiago Alves was, where he's a gatekeeper journeyman fighter. But you know, this person fights so fun. He's such an enjoyable fighter that you wouldn't mind them taking up a main card spot. And that's Angela Hill. Angela Hill, the second you see her in an MMA card, I'm like, okay, I gotta watch that, alright then. I know she's not gonna go and become a champion in the near future. I know she's not even gonna crack the top 5, but she is such a fun, enjoyable, good fighter to watch that whenever I see her, I'm like, you know what? Rankings, whatever. Doesn't matter. I'm gonna watch an Angela Hill fight because I'm going to enjoy this. Now, she's 2-2 in her 2020 record. By the way, mention, she fought 4 times in the year of 2020. Fought 4 times, and if she didn't fight 4 times in the year of 2020, there's a great probability that she might have been cut. And as I am discussing this, it's reported that there will be, we went from like 60 to now 50, that 50 fighters will be cut in the month of January. That's a rumor going around. That's a rumor that's being reported. And Mike Perry, apparently he's safe, and I'm thinking to myself, hey, why is Mike Perry safe? Then Angela Hill has to have job security also, right? Because both Mike Perry and Angela Hill play pretty much similar roles right now in their respective divisions. The fun, enjoyable gatekeeper fighter who will give you an awesome show. And so looking at Angela Hill's record here, so 2-2, she defeated Hannah Cifers, Loma Lookboonmee, but then lost to 2 very controversial bouts against Michelle Waterson and Claudia Cadella. Now, take it or leave it, her beating Hannah Cifers, Loma Lookboonmee, she is one of the more underrated fighters in the UFC. She's incredibly underrated, and she's a type of fighter who I wouldn't be surprised get in the top 10 in the year of 2021. Yeah, look out for Loma Lookboonmee. Meanwhile, her 2 losses to Michelle Waterson and Claudia Cadella, and this is the reason why I believe she has job security and why she's safe, and she's not going to be among the top 50 fighters who will be cut from the UFC. So her battles against Claudia Cadella, I firmly believe, 100%, Angela Hill should have won the fight. She should have defeated Claudia Cadella. She won in the fight stats. She won in the eye test. The only round you could say Claudia Cadella won was in the first round. That's about it. And then in the second and third round, Claudia Cadella slowed down, and especially in the third round, she definitely slowed down, and she struggled even blocking or guarding any of Angela Hill's strikes. And so I'm looking at it. I'm looking at the fight stats. Stats say Angela Hill won. Go through the eye test. Angela Hill won second and third round. And then it goes to a decision victory for Claudia Cadella. Claudia Cadella, when it was announced, she was like, I won? Really? And Angela Hill starts like stomping away. And Michael Bisping, who was doing commentary for that fight, was like, I don't agree to that decision, but okay. And the commentary team were thinking about it, and they're like, oh man, that's really good. That's not, Angela Hill should have won that fight. It should not have been given to Claudia Cadella. And in that same card, it was also Michelle Waterson versus Carla Esparza, to which it was expected Michelle Waterson won that fight, but instead that decision went to Carla Esparza. So we had 2 fights between the Waterson and Carla Esparza, along with Claudia Cadella in the Angela Hill fight. 2 fights that had controversial finishes, and it was very upsetting when you heard like Claudia Cadella, she challenged Esparza, she challenged Claudia Cadella. The MMA community was like not really amped for it. I'm like, really? I don't want either of these 2 women to really fight each other. I get it, they have history, but you really want to see Claudia Cadella and Carla Esparza fight with one another. And with the way how Carla Esparza and Claudia Cadella, how they won their fights, it was hard to be amped up for it though. So it made sense that Waterson and Hill were going to be fighting against each other. And the criticisms for both fighters in their respective bouts with Waterson and Hill was that Hill, it took time for her to really unload and get comfortable in a striking range. She lost the first round because of that. And Michelle Waterson was just way too passive. She was way too passive and she didn't really do much. She fought way too safe in that bout, which led to judges thinking like, oh man, she's not really being all that active, or she's not, pursuing or pushing the pace of the fight. So it's hard for us to give Waterson the score there. So for Hill and Waterson, when they fought each other, it was, in my opinion, one of the best fights of the year. I mean, that's not me just being nice. Michelle Waterson and Angela Hill is such a tight neck fight. Tight neck, close fight, that going off by the eye test, anyone can win it. Really. If you had 100 judges, and they watched the fight 100 times, I can guarantee you they're going to go back and forth in their decision, because it was such a close bout that I'd be upset for whoever lost this fight here, because they really went out there and proved themselves. In that fight, Michelle Waterson defeated Angela Hill in a very close bout. Waterson won via fight stats, just barely, very barely. But if those two were to fight again, one could argue that Angela Hill might win in the rematch. And, if these two were to fight 10 times in a row, it'd go 5-5. That's a real possibility. But for Angela Hill, she had two really good strong showings against Waterson and Claudia Cadella. And she had two good strong showings on Ciphers and Loma Lukbumi. So, although Angela Hill, she's not going to move up in the rankings, she, to me, was a fighter that really stood out. As in, this is a fighter I want to see. And I'm excited for the future of Angela Hill. And also, Angela Hill's social media presence has boomed. Yeah. Like, she's bumped herself up by like thousands of more followers. And her name's appearing a lot more in the news. Even though she's an unranked fighter, you can slot her in and fight against any fighter ranked 5 through 10 or 5 through 15, and you can see Angela Hill beating any of those fighters because she's that tough, or she's going to push those fighters to a whole nother level. One fight I would have loved to see would be Yan Shunan versus Angela Hill, but Yan Shunan is way too high in the rankings at this very point right now to put Yan Shunan against Hill. But if those two were to face off, man, that'd be complete fireworks. And then, number 7. I was thinking of putting her here. And I don't know if it was the best reason, if I even had a good reason in the first place to put her in here in the first place. Like, it's so weird. So, number 7 is Hannah Cifers. She was 10-3 beginning of the year. She is 0-4 in the year 2020, losing to Angela Hill, Mckenzie Dern, Maria Gapova, and Mallory Martin. And Mallory Martin should have been a gimme fight for Hannah Cifers, but she didn't get it also. So, Hannah Cifers, she's in that weird boat of fighters that you enjoy for really weird reasons. So, the way I compared Hannah Cifers is the way how I look at Nate Robinson. Alright? So, Nate Robinson, he's a player for the New York Knicks. He just got knocked out in an exhibition boxing fight against internet influencer Jake Paul. Yeah, that guy. So Nate Robinson, during his time with the New York Knicks, the New York Knicks were awful. Alright? The Knicks were awful. You watch them for other reasons. You don't watch them because you knew that they were going to win the championship or they're even like a contending team. They couldn't even make it to the top 16. They're always in the bottom barrel. Nobody has high expectations or standards for the New York Knicks for the past 23 years. And currently the Knicks right now, they're still sucking, and I wouldn't be surprised if they suck for the next 10 years. But the reason why you watch the New York Knicks was because you wanted to see Jordan Hill, you wanted to see Jamal Crawford, you wanted to see Nate Robinson, you wanted to see these players here who weren't all that good, but they were so fun to watch. Not only were they fun to watch, they were kind of fun to watch despite the fact that they're losing. And you just have to respect their tenacity or their will to just never give up and keep pushing forward. And that's who Hannah Cifers is to me. She is my Nate Robinson for the Knicks. Hannah Cifers, she's far. Angela Hill, I don't expect her to make it into the top 5, but she is good enough to compete against somebody who's ranked number 7th or 6th. Alright then. You could believably see Angela Hill be ranked as high as number 7. Okay? Hannah Cifers, this girl, her ceiling is unranked, and her floor is unranked. And Hannah Cifers, because she's a fighter who fought 4 times, was able to, they're showcase matches, honestly. If you fight against Hannah Cifers, it's a showcase fight for you. Maria Gapova had a stunning highlight reel finish against Hannah Cifers. Dern had the first armbar in years against Hannah Cifers, and then with Angela Hill, who was the first opponent she beat in order for Hill to go make her climb up into the rankings as being a fun fighter or someone who's going to be very prevalent in the year 2020. And I respect that. I respect any fighter who is willing to go out there, even though they're going to fight somebody who's definitely out of their league. At least they're there and they're going to do it. They're trying something. And I put here, she fought 3 times over the course of 5 months. Yeah, she fought 3 times over the course of 5 months. She had very little training camp time. Very little. And then you hear Hannah Cifers like on YouTube in her post-fight or pre-fight presser, and she just doesn't look like she belongs in the world of mixed martial arts. And I'm saying that not as a bad thing. I'm saying that as a way like she's just like she looks like, even in the octagon, like somebody who is clocking in like her card to like, okay, beep, I'm in, I'm gonna go to work now. And then a second she gets knocked out or she taps out, she walks off, slides her card, signs off, goes back home, gets her check, whatever. I'm happy for Hannah Cifers, okay, for making all the money she did. She made, I think I checked up, like $40,000 per fight because she got like, I think an extra incentive bonus because she had such a short time of prepping up for these fights. So they gave her a little bit extra. Good on her for that, man. Good on her for Hannah Cifers. She was able to make an easy 6 figs just by working 4 times in 1 year. So like, that's 4 times. So she made about estimated $150,000 in 1 year, which is the most money she's made. And whenever, like, I still remember this interview, somebody asked Hannah Cifers, hey, what are your expectations here in the UFC? And she's like, I'm just gonna go there, gonna get the opportunity, I'm gonna work. Yups. That's about it. Oh man. It's just this blue collar mentality of Hannah Cifers. I absolutely love it. I really do. So she'll be fighting Emily Whitmore. Yeah, she'll be fighting Emily Whitmore in February. And I put here, this is a battle between 2 people who want to keep their jobs. And because Emily Whitmore, she's 4-4 in the UFC right now, and Hannah Cifers is 10-7, but she was 0-4 in the year 2020. So you have 2 fighters here who are not all that good. I mean, not all that good enough to be a ranked fighter in the UFC, duking it out. And here's the thing: I'm gonna bet my money on Ciphers. Yep, I'm gonna bet my money on Hannah Cifers here because, you know, she took the rest. She got the beating from Mallory Martin. She's going to rest up. She's going to go back to training camp. And we're going to see the old shockwave, right? We're going to see the old shockwave of Hannah Cifers getting the prep time she needs. Because when she has prep time, she can go out there and she'll actually try to fight. She'll try to fight, and she's not going to be like a walking punching bag. She tried to fight against Mckenzie Dern, then became a walking punching bag, then became a punching bag with the other fighters here. But I expect good things from Hannah Cifers. She made a whole lot of money in the year of 2020. She's making the most out of her opportunities, and I respect that. You're listening to the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast. Coming back after the short break here. See you soon.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back. And so, we have the final 3 here. At number 8, I got Zhang, who defeated Tiffany Teo back at One Championship. I always say that Zhang, she has to be one of the best kept secrets. Her and Angela Lee are the 2 best kept secrets from the Western audience in terms of women's mixed martial arts. I really do believe that. Angela Lee, if you don't know, she's only 24 years old. Currently the Atomweight champion. And she's somebody who you can see down the line become kind of like a Zhang Weili, where she's really good in her striking ability, and her grappling ability is out of this world. And it's only a matter of time until we see Ryu Fogat goes up against Angela Lee, and then we see those two square off, and it might be one of the best women's fights of the year, if and when those two ever do square off, though. And then the dream fight of Zhang versus Zhang Weili. Will that fight happen anytime soon? I don't think so. It's been thrown out there several times from the brass members of one. I know Zhang has said that she would like to have a dream fight against Zhang Weili, and Zhang Weili has agreed to that. But the UFC are not interested in doing cross-promotion stuff, and which is really sad. It really is. So far right now, we just have to wait until we got some great one fighters till they retire, and then until they retire from their organization, and then they go and fight over here in the States. I'll love to see that. But, that we can't predict the future, can we? Both Zhang Jingnan and Angela Lee here, who I'm pretty much at this point, I put them as tied. They're tied for 8th place. They're two one championship fighters that I'd like to see fight in the States at some point in the near future. And then, coming up, we have Jessica Andrade. So, Jessica Andrade, she's 1-1. That's her record in the year 2020, losing to a really close bout with Rose Namajunas, to which I believe, if that fight was a championship fight, 5 rounds of action, Rose Namajunas, she obviously won rounds 1 and 2. Round 3, Jessica Andrade was beating Rose decisively, honestly. She did a really good job fighting off Rose in the 3rd round, and if it went 4th and 5th round, Jessica Andrade could have won the fight by knockouts. I really do believe that. But she ended up losing the fight to Rose. She then fought at flyweight and had an upset victory over Kayla Harrison. And the strange thing about Jessica Andrade is that she's a fighter who, it doesn't make sense for her to win, but she does. It's weird knowing that she used to fight bantamweight. She's fighting here at flyweight. And I thought Kayla Harrison would defeat Jessica Andrade. I really did. My prediction was Kayla Harrison was too big. She's a lengthier fighter. She's also really strong. Jessica Andrade, she's strong, but she throws around strawweights. I didn't expect her to go and pick up and slam Kayla Harrison, who has 4 or 5 inches on her. It just didn't make sense for me to see Jessica Andrade win the fight, but she pretty much mauled Kayla Harrison, and now she's arguably the number 1 contender for Valentina Shevchenko. Because Kayla Harrison, she was the highest rank, right before Joanne Calderwood. Okay, so it's Joanne Calderwood, Kayla Harrison. Those are 2 fighters who were expected to fight against Valentina Shevchenko. Kayla Harrison, she lost to Valentina, but she won all her other fights, so she kept her top 3 rankings. And then for Joanne Calderwood, she lost her ranking to Alexa Grasso. So with the way things are going right now, it should be Jessica Andrade versus Valentina. That's a matchup I would love to see. We got the deceptively strong power of Jessica Andrade versus somebody who's got the angling and the accuracy of Valentina Shevchenko. That is a dream fight I not thought I would want to see, but that's a fight that we might be seeing in the year of 2021. And that's a fight that I can guarantee you is going to be fireworks. And then we go for the last fighter of my list here. Now this fighter over here, she has to be probably the most likable fighter. I don't know, she probably has to be the top 3 most likable fighters in the UFC. I would put Wonderboy Stephen Thompson up there. I'd put Khabib. And then you might say Roxanna Mcdaffrey might be the most likable women's fighter right now in the UFC. Because Roxanna Mcdaffrey here, so she was 2-1 in 2020. She had a huge upset over Macy Barber. The fact that Roxanna Mcdaffrey was a top 5 fighter at one point in the UFC is ridiculous to me. Because Roxanna Mcdaffrey, she still kind of is. It's hard to explain Roxanna Mcdaffrey. I saw a video of Roxanne, and somebody in the comments said, Roxanna Mcdaffrey looks like that library who looks like she wouldn't beat you up, but she actually can. And Roxanna Mcdaffrey is like one of the most nicest, chillest people out there in the world. If you ever read up her story, and then like her fandom with like the nerd culture and stuff, it's like her and Israel Adesanya, they get nerd culture. Roxanna Mcdaffrey is also one of those fighters who's just in trash talk. And I know some people like the trash talking aspect of the fight game here, but it's good to have some bad guys. It's also good to have some good guys also. And Roxanna Mcdaffrey has to be, if this is Dungeons & Dragons, she'd be like pure good. Alright, then there's like pure, fun good, not messing with anybody. She's deceptively very strong. She can beat the very best. She can have competitive bouts against top 5 fighters. And if you are a prospect, at one point it was like this for Roxanna Mcdaffrey, where Roxanna Mcdaffrey, she was I think like ranked number 7, 8. She'd be fighting against unranked fighters or fighters who are ranked number 12. And she's still doing it now, actually, where she's fighting fighters who are lower ranked than her. And it was obvious that it was set up for Roxanna Mcdaffrey to lose, but she ends up beating these women. So she had a victory over Macy Barber, which is a huge upset because Macy Barber at one point was expected to be a contender. She lost to Lauren Murphy. Lauren Murphy is tough as nails, expected to be a contender in 2021. And also she got a win over Andrea Lee. And Andrea Lee last year, there was so much momentum going towards Andrea Lee. There really was. Andrea Lee is one of those fighters who I would absolutely not be surprised if she gets cut from the UFC. Andrea Lee is a fighter who, I don't know, Andrea looks so good. She looked so good early on in her career. And then as she starts to like progress on and fight against fighters within the top 10, because Andrea Lee, she can beat anybody outside the top 10, just within the top 10. That's when she's like facing some real killers, and she can't handle that. Now compare that to Roxanna Mcdaffrey, who's pretty much constantly fighting against unranked fighters or fighters who are trying to get their way into the top 5, and Mcdaffrey just stops them. And Mcdaffrey is good enough to still fight against people who are part of the top 5 in her division. I love Roxanna Mcdaffrey. Everyone should love Roxanna Mcdaffrey, and she is one of the most likable people out there in the UFC, and one of the very few true good guys out there in the UFC. If you're thinking about like true, pure good guys, you gotta think like Wonderboy Stephen Thompson, Sage Northcutt at one time, and then Roxanna Mcdaffrey. That's who I believe to be like the herald of like the nicest people who can also like destroy you in a fighters. And that is my list. Just to recap, my top 10 women fighters who stood out in the year 2020. Joanna Jacek and Weili Zhang for their amazing fights. Carla Esparza for trying to finally getting past the gatekeeper role and is now a potential title challenger in the year 2021. Mckenzie Dern, who started off as a prospect, is now going to be fighting against a top 6 fighter in the strawweight division in Nina Ansaroff. Kayla Harrison, who I believe in the year 2020 truly cemented herself as a superstar female fighter who is comparable to Amanda Nunes. We have Angela Hill, who although did not win all her fights, she probably had the most exciting string of fights among all women in the UFC. We got Hannah Cifers, who although lost all her fights, huge respect for her for fighting as much as she did with as little prep time as she had, fighting against women who are bigger than her like a Maria Agapova, fighting against women who she had no business being there with, but she made a whole lot of money doing this job that she loves. I respect her. Good on her for that. I have Zhang Jingnan, who defended her strawweight title belt against Tiffany Teo. I also have Jessica Andrade going 1-1, although losing to Rose Namajunas in a very tight bout, was able to get the upset victory over Caitlin Chookagian and is now on sights. She's on her way to becoming a title challenger against Valentina Shevchenko. Won't be surprised if those two end up fighting at some point middle or late of 2021. And we have Roxanna Mcdaffrey, who's here for a 2-1 record, really just coming out of nowhere. Early this year, she was not even ranked, and then she ended up defeating Macy Barber, got herself into the top 5, and has now cemented herself as one of the top female fighters in the world. And that is my top 10 female fighters who stood out to me in the year of 2020. Though, for the year 2021, I expect big things coming in, especially from One Championships. It was discussed that they're going to go have strawweights, like a strawweight tournament happening right now. It's currently in the process of being worked through right now, where they're going to have this huge like women's mixed martial arts tournament comprised of the best like strawweights out there. it was reported out there that there's going to be like a huge name coming in from the Western states fighting in this one championship tournament. I'm excited to see on who is it going to be. Also for Bellator, what I'm hoping for here, is that Bellator is finally going to go and make some stars off their female fighters. And when I say stars, I mean stop having them be fed to like Chris Cyborg, okay? Then stop just feeding her. All right, then you can make an entire division built around her, but you actually got to make the division, okay? That's what I'm hoping for. Because right now it just feels like Chris Cyborg, then everybody else is just whatever. Like there's like little to no promotion for the other female fighters. What are my expectations for one championships woman of Angela Lee and Zhang? Well, I expect both of them to keep their belts. I really do. I think at some point in the year of 2021, we might have a rematch yet again. So, Zhang ended up winning the first bout, Angela Lee ended up winning the second one, and it makes sense. Let's do champion versus champion, and let's have Angela Lee versus Zhang Jinan again in their trilogy fights. And I don't see why not. I really don't. Because if there's a tournament happening, then those two are inactive. Neither of them are going to be participating in the tournament. So just let's have them be active and fight against one another. No title is going to be on the line. Let's just have the two best female fighters in the organization fighting against one another. That's something I want to see. Also, Dana White has tossed around the idea of an atomweight division. He has. I've discussed this all the time. Like, when will it be an atomweight division? When will there be an atomweight division? And every single time, after every UFC event, there's somebody asking Dana White, hey, will there be an atomweight division? And they always bring up, hey, will there be a featherweight division? And Dana White, all he does is he just gives vague answers. He's like, I don't know. I've been thinking about an atomweight division. I've tried to make an atomweight division. I've discussed about it. But, COVID happened, so that stopped my plans. Well, the vaccine is out. It looks like things are recovering. Things are going back to normal yet again. And if there is an atomweight division, I wouldn't be surprised if the featherweight division gets scrapped. The featherweight division, it doesn't have any... Other than Felicia Spencer and Megan Anderson, who else is there? And if Megan Anderson were to lose her bout against Amanda Nunes, what does that make the other featherweights who are not even, given names in the actual sites? I know, there are featherweight bouts that happen. There are. They exist. It's just, their names are not there in the rankings. I've watched MMA shows, and I watched UFC events where they're billed as featherweight women's MMA fights, but they don't lead to anything. Let's have the featherweights be given something, and if they're not given something, let's go and have an atomweight division. Note though, if the featherweight division is scrapped, then it is very, very unlikely we're going to see Kayla Harrison compete for the UFC. Because, to be honest with you, I don't want to see Kayla Harrison compete at bantamweights. I don't. I want to see big, jacked, huge, buff, and powerful Kayla Harrison try to ragdoll the lioness Amanda Nunes. That's something I want to see. Attack of the Titans, battle between these two women who are just nearly unbeatable in their respective divisions. I want to see those two duke it out. The very best in one company fights against the very best in another company. Kayla Harrison versus Amanda Nunes, to me, would be like the Ronda Rousey versus Chris Cyphers fight that we never got to see. Do I expect those two to fight in the year of 2021? Honestly, no. I don't expect it. But if it were to happen, I want to see Kayla Harrison at her very best, and I want to see Amanda Nunes at her very best. Let's, give the featherweight division another chance. If it does get scrapped, I understand. But Dana White, I would like to see both the featherweight division and the atomweight division. And so that does it for today's podcast. You have been an awesome audience. All I gotta say is thank you. Thank you for listening to the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'd like to ask you, please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you, and have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Women's Mixed Martial Arts Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.